what would be our sources of finance, and also.
Thank you so much, Honorable Cabinet Secretary. Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's a nicer room. Come on. Thank you so much for those of you who joined us from yesterday. As you know, we had to apologize that we had adjourned that session. Today also we'll try and move this quite quick. His Excellency the President has requested the ministers to meet him. We're still working on that, but let's, as you know, we'll always move it as if that's still there. So please indulge us as we move this forward. Quickly, without further ado, and all protocols observed, let me quickly hand this over to Shiko to move very quickly on the context of workforce and talent development. We've broken it into 5 sessions, just for purpose of etiquette. If you want to speak, raise your tent and do it that way. We'll try and ensure that we see you. If you're not with a goose mic, there are roving mics that somebody will hand the mic over to you. Honorable ministers had received sort of earlier emails. Of course, you really do not have to do a speech or a statement. It's very much as we did the first panel around experience sharing, and hopefully by tomorrow we'll have a version of a statement where we can agree on areas that we need to connect and collaborate. Without further ado, and in the interest of time, Shiko, you have very few minutes. The floor is yours.
Good morning. Oh, good afternoon, everyone. It's been such a day. Let's allow the PS to come in before we can start.
Just to recognize the presence of the Principal Secretary for Digital Economy. I don't know what the feedback is. Engineer John Tanui, he'll make his remarks at some point. Shiko, please proceed.
Yes, he's not speaking first. So good afternoon, everyone. We have a few people online. I hope they can hear us. Thank you so much for coming. I think I've spoken to many of you, especially the honorable ministers. Thank you for coming. I hope this morning you had an excellent time, some of you, and the sessions that you attended are great. So as the program, we've organized this thematically, and we are going to start with the critical thing around our continent. And just to set context, our continent is a continent of young people. Our continent is 19.5-year-olds, right? We are oh, you can't hear me? Okay, thank you, Philip. Our continent is made of 1.5 billion people and on an average of 19.5-year-olds, right? In 2025, we'll be 2.5 billion people at an average age of 17.5. So we have a huge population that is largely young. And this afternoon, we want to talk about the digital economy in the context of those young people, because you always have to think about the future of our continent. We have a few interventions. We've welcomed a few people to talk about this. And I think, I'm waiting for my program to load, just a minute, so I can...
I'm counting your minutes.
Sorry. So I want to invite a few of the countries that we asked to talk about this, but everyone is welcome to have an intervention. It's a conversation, not a lecture. So that is the mode that we are going into this conversation. So I'll ask Honorable Salima to come in and speak about how I love what Sierra Leone is doing around data, around workforce development, and we've been following some of the data that is working. So from a perspective from Sierra Leone, how does workforce development and talent feature in your plans for digital economy?
Thank you. I didn't know I was going to speak first, but thank you very much. I think when we in Sierra Leone think about workforce development, we're thinking two separate sectors. I think we were thinking public sector, which is a huge part for us, because when you talk about digital transformation, digitizing government service delivery, there's a huge emphasis in ensuring that our public sector workers who are going to be expected to utilize these services should be digitally literate. And that's a huge area where we find gaps. So in order to do that, some of the innovative initiatives that we're setting up is digital learning hubs that are specific for public sector workers. So they become like training sites where we hope to not only capture looking at the new public sector workers that are coming into the workforce. We are making it mandatory for you to have certain digital skills training, for you to complete certain digital skills training before you come in, but then also for the ones who are within the workforce, we're also mandating completion of certain number of hours of digital skills training per year, and we're tying it to some of our benefits and initiatives to ensure that they do that. So, and that is really key for us. But then also with the private sector, this is also an area where we're hoping through our schooling, through our curriculum, where we've included digital skills and coding as part of our curriculum within the primary and secondary school, but also within our tertiary education, we're enforcing that. But then also to accelerate, we have these digital learning hubs that are for young people where they can go in and be able to access digital skills training at little or no cost. So those are some of the areas which we're intervening to see how we can accelerate workforce development for both public sector and private sector.
And I love that. I love that they are focusing on both public sector, because those are the people who are providing the service, but also starting on the law, changing the curriculum, because what has been happening across Africa is we have digital skilling, but it only starts after tertiary level. And because I am not sure if Bosun has connected, Honorable Bosun, sorry, it would be great to hear from Emma and what they are doing in Namibia.
Thank you so much, Shiko. Good afternoon, everyone. Very happy to be here talking about some of these thematic areas. Around workforce and talent, I think Minister Sarima spoke very well about the interconnectedness between the public sector and private sector, and how that's important in order to drive the digital agenda in both sectors. Maybe I can come in with a perspective around the public service, because if you look at it, whether it's the public sector or private sector, we all converge in one area, and that's around service delivery by the government. And we find many a times our workforces either do not have the up-to-date necessary skills in order to actually deliver on the public service delivery. And this is why in Namibia, with some partners from Estonia and others, we're looking at a way in which we can, one, ensure we train our current workforce, especially in the public sector, to ensure they're able to respond to the needs of service delivery today. So one of which would be the reskilling of staff in various institutions. Our biggest ministry is our Ministry of Interior, which is known as Ministry of Immigration, Safety and Security, and Home Affairs. And this is really where we would like to track every citizen from birth to death. But that only requires, if we put the necessary systems in place, that one would allow the identity of every person at birth to be then properly documented. By the time a Namibian turns 16, they get an ID. In this instance, we have explored electronic IDs, moving into digital IDs, and that then we are able to track them throughout their schooling and working career. But that requires a digital system to be able to manage that is managed by public servants. So we have done very well so far in terms of ensuring that we reskill our workforce, but more work needs to be done, and that's why there are interventions at primary and secondary level, as well as public institutions of higher learning, so that by the time those young people get into the workforce, we don't have to spend so much money in actually skilling them with those digital skills and literacy. So I think I'll end off there. I'm sure others will be able to add from what they're doing in their countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me also be able to thank you very much for that question, and also thank my fellow ministers for also outlining what they're doing, which I believe is not very much divergent to what we're also doing. Yes, in Zimbabwe, we have also structured that in making sure that at least we have got a digital skills program that we have put in place. Initially, we used to train just basic skills, and we have given ourselves a target to make sure that each and every month, at least we'll train at least 5,000 people. But what we have also done is not only about basic computing, but we've realized that we need to go a step forward on also looking at cybersecurity, where we have started also now creating that awareness and also training people about cybersecurity, because we have realized that the sector has very much been attacked, especially with a lot of cyber attacks that we have seen. So we have also done that, and again we have also created what we call a high computing system, which we have put in place at our tertiary institution, so that at least we'll get a lot of young people also coming through and having a lot of their innovations. Coming up with the ICT policy has also assisted us to also come up with the startup policy. So that alone as well, we have also tried by all means to make sure that we continuously are able to also create a conducive environment for the young people to be able to prosper in. And again, we also pride in us having great collaborations so that we're able to do this. And again, on the public sector, on the private sector, we very much also emphasize on digital skills. It's a prerequisite before one gets into the public sector. We expect you at least to have some basic computer skills. That's what we have also done. And basically, for us as Zimbabwe, we also feel that there is a lot that we need to do in terms of the infrastructure so that we're able to do that, so that we can get more and more things coming through. But however, for us, the digital skills need to enhance more. We believe that there is more that needs to be done, mainly focusing on us, making sure that at least we advance on making everyone understand what needs to be done. And finally, what we have also done is also adding some skills that we think are relevant, especially for our young children. We're saying it's good for us to catch them young. So we have liaised with the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education, where we have started introducing coding and robotics at a young age. We believe that all these disruptive technologies are upon us, and what we need to do is for us to continuously be able to also incorporate them. Artificial intelligence also is now started being taught at our universities, and we feel this is the way to go. Besides that, we continuously are able to make sure that within the public sector and also the private sector, we assist each other, and great collaboration is done for us to enhance that.
Awesome. What I'm hearing is there's need to start with them very young. There's need to upskill our workforce, but also there's need to create greater awareness within our public sector staffing. So, okay. So the important one, I just want to bring in our neighbor Uganda before I bring in our peers to talk about the program that we're running in Kenya, and then I can hand it over to Philip for the next section.
Thank you very much. I walked in late, but I hope you are asking us to share experiences and what we are doing in our various countries. Thank you very much, and I want to recognize all of you, Your Excellencies. My name is Chris Bariumusi. I am the Minister for ICT and National Guidance in Uganda. Like many countries represented here, Uganda, in terms of demographics, we are a young country with over 78% of the population being below 30 years. And this has its own implications, especially in terms of how we do programming, but also as we embrace technology. We have many programs that we've put in place because our resolve is that we should move fast so that we are not left behind in this digital revolution. And to that end, we are addressing many areas. One of them is digital infrastructure. We've been laying the national backbone infrastructure, which we get through the Indian Ocean, through Kenya here, to Uganda, but recently we hooked with the Tanzanian network, and we are connecting with the other neighboring countries. And the NBI has covered now about 60% of the country. But we have another phase which we are embarking on to cover the rest of the country and do last mile connections so that we can connect all district headquarters, all health facilities, all schools, and other institutions in order to have connectivity in all corners of the country. We are also focusing on digital skilling in order to have adequate digital literacy, and there we train, especially through schools and educational institutions. We provide computers and other smart devices to young people so that they can fully be involved in this digital transformation. We have programs to automate government services. We get resources from different funders like World Bank, and we have moved a long journey in terms of strengthening the e-government and having automated services. Like now, if you're applying for a passport, for a driving permit, for land title, and all these transactions in the government, we are fully automating them so that we move away from analog and manual processes to digital processes and have a paperless government, but also have efficiency due to technology. We support innovations and other programs. For instance, we have an innovation fund that is managed in the Ministry of ICT, where our young people who come from universities and tertiary institutions can apply for this fund, and they are supported to come up with solutions. And through this, they have been able to come up with many innovations, and we've put money in the national budget to help them scale up some of these programs. We are also looking at the area of BPOs, and the President particularly tasks us to use ICT to create employment opportunities for the young people, because one of the biggest challenges that we face, many universities, many tertiary colleges and institutions producing very many graduates, but then the employment opportunities are limited. And we're trying to explore ways how we can use technology to create employment. We've signed contracts with a number of companies in Europe. The other day I was in the Philippines, and they are helping us to link with the healthcare system in the US for the nurses and health workers to see how we can create jobs through offshore BPO arrangement for the Ugandan youth to harness the potential of technology. We've put in place policies and legislations in order to create a favorable environment to promote ICT and other technologies. Some of the challenges that we face.
Sir, I'm loving it because you're anchoring our whole conversation. We have spoken, so we were focusing mostly on the workforce, and I love what you're doing, and I love that you've drawn a full circle between creating not only just skilling, but also creating jobs. That linkage is amazing what you're doing. We are going to come back to infrastructure and the other places later on. Wanted to just give an opportunity to our CS and our friends from the EU to just do a bit of an intervention around workforce development, especially in the context of emerging technologies and creating employment for our young people. Bwana CS?
Thank you very much. Within Kenya, our proposition is that the rationale for digital skilling is informed by the level of public digital infrastructure that we are rolling out. If you are rolling out a critical mass of digital infrastructure, there has to be a commensurate level of digital skilling among the population. So within this context, we are not just focusing on the public sector. We are focusing on the entire population. For a start, we started by deploying devices and undertaking training in TVET institutions targeting the youth. But now we are going to the extra mile to set up digital hubs within the villages themselves. We are going to do a total of 1,450 digital hubs in Kenya where we are undertaking the training of the youth on digital skills. We are connecting internet, deploying the devices, we do the training, and we connect the youth to digital jobs, leveraging on the platforms for digital job opportunities which are available online. We will go the extra mile also to integrate public officials, considering the fact that we are already digitalized over 16,000 services which are now available technologically. The net effect of this is that government will be leveraging on technology for purposes of service delivery to the Kenyan public. And therefore, all public servants must have the requisite level of technical skills that is required to enable them utilize the digital infrastructure that we are deploying. We are also, in the same vein, digitizing all the government records. That will also ensure that we have got adequate skills within the records management space. In the public sector, some of the areas where we have moved with speed and diligence to deploy technology to enhance efficiency and effectiveness include health. We are doing e-health. The revenue services, we are strengthening our revenue collection and management systems. The passports and border control, registration of births and deaths, just to mention but a few. Maybe I'll ask my peers to also augment.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. This is a very important conversation because skills is the foundation to link it to opportunities. In addition to just digital skills, as a country, we are looking at how we educate our young people so that it's based on market demand, so that the programs to be implemented by all academic institutions to be driven by clear demand from the market. So the same also in the digital skills space, we're looking at what are the requirements in the market. We have several programs that we are running. We have one program called Presidential Digital Talent Program. This program was initiated about around 2013, 2012, and these were mainly focused at addressing the skill gap in the public sector. At that time, there used to be huge competition within the sector players in terms of skill demand, and there used to be a lot of churning, movement from one company to the other. The entire industry came together with the government and established a Presidential Digital Talent Program, starting with a cohort of 200. Now we are doing about 400, and it's progressing towards 1,000, where we will have annually an output. And these young people have an opportunity to experience both public sector and private sector within their first 1-year engagement. That's one of the programs. We have other programs with partners, like with MasterCard Foundation, which we've run under the brand Ajira. And this enables our young people also to skill themselves in a wide range of opportunities based on the demands of skills in digital jobs online. We also recently initiated what our CS ministers talked about, and our program, we call it Jitume, where we are encouraging our young people to self-drive, to have a self-drive towards digital skilling and link it to digital opportunities, and we are running, establishing those digital platforms. Additionally, at the high level here at Kenya, because I think we should not just look at the basic skill. We want to go to the next level, and we've been able to work with our universities, some of the leading top universities, to ensure that the skills are enriched, and bringing the private sector companies like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, Google to work with our universities. And we are very happy to see the results that we now host a number of development centers, and this enables our young people to get a high quality jobs. Lastly, we've just recently established a research institute called Kenya Advanced Institute of Science and Technology. This will now be the platform for iTech in ICT. Now we not just basic skill, but to ensure we are able to keep programs at master's and PhD level for our young people, and we are looking this to be at a continental level. We are working with Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, who have also run such programs from 1971, borrowing from what Stanford helped them to establish at that time. So this is also a way to ensure at the basic level we have the skills, and also at the expert top level we have skills. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bonacieux. Oh, okay, Bonacieux has something.
A small addition to augment what PS has said. Equally, as at 30th October last year, we launched our first open university, which is domiciled at our Konza Technopolis cloud platform. This again is going to give us an enormous opportunity for all Kenyans at all levels to be able to leverage on technology for purposes of digital skilling, among other various disciplines. So we have got people who are not able to acquire digital skills based on affordability all over Kenya now are able to log in and learn through that virtual university platform. As at now, we already have an enrollment level of 1,500. On the digital skilling for the youth, since we started these programs last year, between last year and now, we have managed to train 390,000 youth. In equal measure, we have managed to create 139,000 digital jobs for the youth.
Thank you so much, sir. So as we know that we cannot achieve full digital transformation without partnership, and we are so glad that many partners for Africa's development are in this room. We are going to be giving a few of them time to speak and intervene. And for now, I just want to introduce and welcome the European Union to just tell us what some of their use cases around digital skills and how they have achieved and how they are partnering with Africa on this. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. So, can you hear me fine? Better? Thank you so much. So, good afternoon, and thank you for the invitation. I'm here representing the European Commission today, and it is a pleasure to be with you in this forum. So, digitalization is a key priority for the European Commission, both internally at Europe level, but also internationally with our international partnerships. And digitalization is also one of the 5 pillars of the EU Global Gateway Strategy, which is the EU offer for quality investment and infrastructures to accelerate both the green and the digital transition. And this priority is fully aligned with the vision set out in the African Union Digital Transformation Strategy and the creation of an African digital single market. So let me give you a few examples of how we work with our regional and local partners to achieve a fair, sustainable, and inclusive and human-centric digital transformation. First, on the question on skills and job creation, and especially on connectivity for research and education sector. We know that the research and education sector has very specific needs in terms of broadband connectivity and tools and infrastructure. And since 2011, the European Union has been supporting the creation, consolidation, and interconnection of research and education networks, both at regional and national level in Africa, through the Africa Connect project, which is in its 3rd phase, and we have committed to start a 4th one with a total budget of 37 million euros. This project has achieved remarkable progress by enhancing access of research and education institutions to secure and affordable network infrastructures and providing connectivity and services to over 1,700 institutions and 4.5 million end users. Another example I want to give you is about the Regional Teachers Initiative in Africa, which is a 100 million investment from the European Union and also a Global Gateway investment flagship and part of the Global Gateway investment package, which is worth in total 150 billion. So this initiative responds to the need to train and provide qualified teachers for sub-Saharan Africa in the number of 15 million. And so we work with regional partners to implement national education and teachers reform, training programs, and upskilling. So we go basically at the stream by providing trainings for teachers so that they can be able to offer quality education and great digital skills. I can give you a few examples later about infrastructure, but for the moment, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I will hand over to Philip for the next section.
Thank you so much. And I'm sorry, we're really, again, just stretched on time. Thank you so much. You really took us to the next segment, which was digital transformation. And quickly, we'll try and do 2 segments, then we can have some interventions, then do the next 2 segments. Let me quickly go to the Honorable Minister for Tanzania. If you can share experiences around digital transformation. Let me also cue Minister Paula as the next speaker on digital transformation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone. First of all, it's impressive to listen to individual countries, what they have done to their countries, especially on embracing the digital transformations. Here, starting from having the infrastructures in place, especially the communication infrastructure, which is backbone to digital transformations. Looks like every individual countries have done something on the infrastructure. The question here is empowering the people to use the infrastructure. And here, I think we have to address an issue of the smart devices. I had Kenya, for example, Brother Eliud yesterday was talking about addressing the issue of smart devices, but also I had, I think, the guy from Safaricom was trying to discuss on this. Yes, we are continuing investing on the infrastructure. The government with the private sector, and here it is important to bring in the private sector, because we all know that it is expensive investing on the infrastructure. So we have managed through the Universal Communication Access Fund, which is contributed from the public sector, from the government subsidy, but also from the private sector, I mean the operators. Together, we use now the UCSAF to have the infrastructures in place, especially to those areas that will not attract the private sector, especially the rural. We all know these are developing countries. Almost 80% of our populations are living in the rural, where you don't have appeal to business investing. So you need the government to go there. So this was the first thing. In Tanzania, we agreed that our communication services should have 5 pillars. One, should the availability of the services. It has to be available even to the rural. This is important for us. Second, the affordability. So the services have to be affordable. Third, the quality. It is important to consider the quality. Of course, the safety. People have to trust and use the services, things like mobile money and all these services. But there is a fifth component, which is the impact. People have to feel that they are connected, yes, but there is an impact for them to being connected. When we talk of digital transformation, we are talking of daily life of our people, how they live, how they do this. My suggestions, humble suggestions to my friends in Africa, we have invested relatively. We think now it is important that we make our people use these investments on the services and feel if I come from Tanzania, let's say I go to Uganda, I should feel the same, use the services as if I am in Tanzania. And I think this is important. Now, how do we do that? We have to harmonize our policies. We have to harmonize how we approach issues on the digital transformation. It is important. Today, if I come to Kenya, am I being able and comfortable to use my mobile money services? Am I being able and comfortable to roam easily? And this is important. I think we should not wait. It's time for for us now to make sure our people feel they are one people. You come from any part of the continent, you go to another country, you can use the services, you can be comfortable, and this is important. Let's use whatever we have invested to bring our people together. This will mean a lot, and we have to start somewhere. I think we have been sharing these experiences of what we are doing to our own countries. I think we have to have, we need to move now. Let's connect our people. Let's facilitate our people to do the e-commerce, to do the trades, and let them feel comfortable that they're in the continent that they feel they are one people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. And the next segment will be trade. And I'm looking at Emily. You are hearing the cues from Honorable Minister. How many private sector in the room? Show of hands, very quickly. Private sector folks, show of hands. The Minister has made a very clear point that private sector goes only to where it's lucrative. At some point, I hope one of you will raise your tent to convince the Minister otherwise, that you're actually thinking about investing in people and not necessarily making profit now. So those long-term investments that are very much patient capital is what our countries need. Because don't worry, we will fill the areas that you are investing in, but we need those investments now because we shouldn't leave anybody behind. Let me quickly go to Honorable Minister Paula.
Thank you very much, Philip. I think I'll be very brief, considering that what we are discussing today builds off some of the conversations that we had yesterday. But I think when we talk about digital transformation, I see it in two ways. One is the work that all of us as ministers in charge of technology and innovation and digital economy, the work of putting in place what I'll call the foundational instruments that will enable truly digital transformation. So that is whether there's infrastructure. Many of us working with the different telecom operators are investing in ensuring that we have last mile connectivity for our people. We've talked about devices, because it's not enough to have just connectivity. It's how people then get to benefit meaningfully from the infrastructure investments. It's the skills that are so essential in ensuring that our people can benefit firsthand from these investments. But the other side of the coin that we also must continue to pay attention to is how the digital landscape, digital technologies, fourth industrial revolution, how this is enabling the different other sectors, whether it's tourism, education, agriculture, logistics, name it. And for each of our countries, we know which of those sectors are critical to our economic development, and really understanding what role digital plays in really driving growth. Now, one thing that we have, across Africa, and some of the ministers did highlight it, Shiko did highlight it at the beginning of this session, is our young people. When you look at our demographics, most of our countries, those below 30 are more than 70%. So it means we have quite an active and youthful population, and I think it's something we need to be very intentional about, and on how we skill them, how we ensure that they're really shaping the future that in many ways is also going to be shaped by digital. But the other thing is, when we talk about different other sectors, is that a lot of our countries are heavily dependent on agriculture. And so if we truly mean leaving no one behind, and we're talking about digital transformation, agriculture comes the low-hanging fruit, where we can sort of think about what kind of digital investments are we making to ensure that everyone fully benefits from that. So whether it's our farmers, yes, they'll need smartphones, they'll need the digital skills, but for what? And that what is really critical. How are we creating more income and wealth for the different households in our different countries? How are we ensuring that they are leveraging digital to better themselves? And I think that's where perhaps we should steer the conversation in understanding the role of digital as an enabler, not just as a sector where we're so focused on infrastructure, skills, and devices, but truly understanding how do we unlock the potential of this. And this comes at the backdrop of what the Minister of Tanzania has highlighted, whether it's e-commerce, whether it's trading across borders. And now we're talking about AI, and a field that I think as a continent we cannot afford to be, to play catch up. There's an opportunity for us to be at least closer to what's happening. Yes, we still have significant challenges to solve for, whether it's access to electricity, because many of these, emerging technologies are power hungry. So how much access to electricity can we generate to fuel such an industry? But really even understanding from a policy perspective, what does harmonization look like? Why should, I just visited this morning Konza Technopolis. Why should a startup in Konza, when coming to Kigali or going to Zimbabwe, have to navigate 3 different kinds of regulations? I think that's something that we, as policymakers in the room, we can actually work towards unlocking around making sure for those policies that are non-existent and regulations, let's not go in silos. Let's work together to even have a framework that allows for scale for both our private sector and more so the startups. And then the infrastructure investments will follow once you have the right legal environment, the right policy environment in place. But without that solved for, then we will, in many ways, we'll still go as 54 different countries, and we'll never be able to see truly digital transformation happening in an equitable manner. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister Paul. I think a lot of pertinent points. Digital for what? I think that's important, just not wanting to join the bandwagon. And again, I think it's important to figure out where each country is, what value can digital add in each country once we do the basics. Skill our young population, provide the necessary regulatory environment, ensure that we have the right infrastructure, building on your 5 issues around affordability, but also ensuring that we've harmonized across. And I think Paul has raised this pertinent point kind of subtly, is that a young startup in Konza needs to see Africa as a market. And it's just not about Kenya. But also I think you place some emphasis around infrastructure, and let me quickly go to Yannick, because infrastructure was raised. Potentially, what can you share from the US around infrastructure and digital transformation?
Thank you, Philip, for the opportunity to be here today. It's an honor to be in your presence, and it's been quite the dynamic experience being here in Kenya, working in this sector and just being able to facilitate the entry of American business and facilitating connections and linkages. I will say that in terms of infrastructure, the digital master plan obviously is sort of the guiding light and the focus of much of the work that we do, and trying to understand how can US businesses contribute to just accelerating the deliverables in that master plan. So I think particularly about KDIP, right, and how US companies can contribute as the rollout for either last mile infrastructure or upskilling in terms of providing digital services through public servants. And that's something that US companies are gearing up to contribute to. I'll keep it brief and leave it at that. And if there are any other sort of questions, I'm happy to take them. Thanks.
Thanks, Yannick. And potentially, of course, the US has been running the digital transformation is it of Africa or with Africa? So that's potentially something maybe you want to highlight to the ministers, because it's something that could benefit people.
Sure. So the digital transformation for Africa is something that came out of the Africa Leaders Summit in 2022. There's lots going on right now in terms of gearing up funding and seeing where the interest lies on the continent for where we can sort of focus our efforts. I can't say too much in terms of what the decisions are, just because the decision-making process is still happening. And I know that there has been some disappointment regarding, the funding that has been allotted for some of the initiatives that were initially spoken about at that conference in 2022. But I think that currently there are conversations happening around what that could potentially look like, what makes the most sense for Kenya, not just Kenya, but across Africa. So I'll just leave it at that. Thanks.
Oh, Jesus. Thanks so much, Yannick. As always, any honorable minister, please raise your tent if you want to intervene at any time. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Of course, I'm not a cabinet minister, but I'm representing our government. Our minister was supposed to be here, but he got the invitation a bit late. So we have a couple of things to share, especially what Malawi is doing. Anyway, my name is Baldwin Chiamwaka, Secretary for Information and Digitalization. I want to share about 3 case studies which might be helpful for this forum. We have in Malawi since 2014, we piloted a program called BeFit, but in full it's building education, foundation, innovation and technology, Malawi Scale-Up program. Now, it's just a demonstration by the Malawi government to improving the foundational literacy and numeracy skills of all primary school learners in standard 1 and 4 through this program. It's massively scalable and evidence-based and closely aligned with the Malawi official vision plan, Malawi 2063, which is youth-centric. And also one of the key enablers is digitalization, ICT technology innovations. This program focuses on foundational learning for youth and digital skill development for students and teachers. For example, currently serving about 3.8 million children across 6,000 public primary schools. And it's led by the government and temporarily supported by a consortium of partners, NGOs, and I'm happy to mention them here, Imagine World, 1 Billion, VSO, and others. But also it's embedded within the national curriculum and school timetables, introduces solar power, and provide ICT training, upskill communities, and catalyze job creation. It's fully sustained by the government, operationally and financially, post-implementation phase. It's a good skill because each one of the learners is provided with a tablet to use and work without internet or grid power. Learning is at right level for each child and also very efficient and affordable. That's one of the scalable that focuses on building skills. But we also have just reviewed our curriculum. As I'm talking now, there is a national curriculum review taking place in Malawi, happening at the same time, where it's focusing on basic digital literacy for standard 4 particularly, use of MSA Word, Google Search, WhatsApp, and Python coding, digital marketing in secondary schools, and AI in the university. This all is focusing on improving their skills. But we also, from the Universal Services Fund, we have a program called Imuni Fund, where we are targeting youth who have creative and innovative solutions based on ICT technologies. And these are a few of the programs we are doing. We are also currently have requested one of our key partners, the founder, who I'm proudly to say she's here, Dr. Rachel Veya, founder of MHub Malawi. She's currently working for Bill Gates Foundation. She's not here representing the Malawi government. I'll have to make that clear. She's here because of Bill Gates, but she is an asset in our country. And we are introducing a digital ambassadors program, SME digital skills program for Malawi, starting next year, and with an organization which she actually founded. Briefly, that's what I can share for now, but I have a lot in the bag. I may come in later. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mr. Secretary. Rachel, clearly you have a lot of funds in the room. Charles, let's just hear private sector voice because I put you guys on the spot. Is another turn to very quickly? If I don't see one, this chance will go. We'll move to the next session. Charles, go. Minister.
Thank you so much, Philip. My name is Charles Marito, and I lead government affairs and public policy for Google in Africa. I do want to touch on 2 key areas. One, just building on the piece around workforce and development, and I want to actually take us back a little bit in the essence of early childhood development. I know that's something that we don't talk too much about, but the reason I want to bring that is that building on Dr. Shiko's data point regarding the level of youth, I want to give you another data point, which is that by 2050, more than a third of the world's workforce is going to be right here in Africa. And so that is something that we cannot ignore 2050 is only 26 years away, so we need to really start thinking through how are we laying the foundation of the young people who are being born and entering early childhood development centers today, because that is going to be the workforce of the future. So when we're talking about workforce development, it really needs to start at that nascent level. And I do want to give just three quick points that I think are critical. One is thinking about the hardware, and by hardware I talk about the minimum viable product of what a school needs to be across the continent. And I think that that's something that we need to think about. Sanitation, the classroom itself, and the like. Those are basic things that are critical for a learning environment. The second piece being the software. What kind of curriculums, and Minister Salima, you mentioned this, what kind of curriculum are we having our children learn? And is it forward-looking in terms of the way that young Africans are learning so that they can be ready to service the world in the future? And we all spoke about how do we bring in more jobs into Africa, but for those jobs to come to Africa, Africans must be ready to take those jobs. So that element of the right software, the right curriculum, are our teachers well trained enough to be able to deliver that quality education that can be useful or that will be useful in the future? And the last thing that we don't talk a lot about is nutrition. And the reason I'm talking about this is that between 0 and 5, 0 and 7, that is the most formative element in terms of the brain for young children. And if we do not give our children the right nutrition at that particular basic stage, they will never catch up. As Minister Paula said, when it comes to II, Africa cannot be left behind. We can't afford to be left behind. It comes to the same thing around nutrition. If our children between 0 and 7 are not well fed, then they will never be able to catch up, no matter how smart they are. So I think that when it comes to workforce development, I just wanted to give that intervention.
Thanks so much.
Sorry, I just want to give one quick thing on infrastructure. On infrastructure, as Google, we have invested quite a bit, and Minister from Tanzania, you raised the question, and we are taking long-term investment views. On that, just two quick investment examples. Equiano, which stretches from Portugal all the way to Cape Town, has been one of those infrastructure projects, long-term, no payback anytime soon, but definitely American companies are doing that, and Google is an example of that. And the second example is that we've built our first cloud region in South Africa to service Africa, which basically helps reduce the latency and can be able to deliver the cloud computing power that we need on the continent to service and be able to analyze the data that we have on the continent. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Charles. So that's Google. I'm sure other private sector kind of have the same shared spirit. I think we will figure out once we move forward. We're really thinking of putting together a collaborative between private sector and governments to figure out what are these pain points, what the private sector companies that can do this at scale, because what I'm hearing is at scale, but also to deepen the sort of infrastructure that we need. With its infrastructure skills, I know Google is working on a model, Android, that works on a kind of a less affordable smartphone, so I think this will be of interest to honorable ministers here. As Kenya is building smartphones, Google is providing an Android version that works on a $20 smartphone. So I think that's something that we need to think about. Honorable Minister, please.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And I come after everyone has said a lot of things that I thought I would share about the penetration of infrastructure in most of the countries where we come from. And really for me is that, yes, we have connected, we've built infrastructure. When are we going to talk about affordability? When are we going to get to a point where we talk about getting the data affordable for the most vulnerable people in our communities? And the devices, the gadgets, the cell phones, you've just hinted a bit on the $20 cell phones, which I think it's something that I would like to hear more about it, because without those, digitization would be a journey that we'll never get to finish. I just wanted to throw that in. I don't want to share much
Thank you so much, and this is where potential Honorable Minister and our Minister from Kenya can have a bilateral in terms of what we are doing at cons.
Philip, we have Lithuania with the back.
Okay. I think quite a number of our colleagues today have visited both Konza and the device assembly plant, which is a partnership between the Kenya government and the private sector, the telecommunication companies. We have embarked on local assembly of smart-enabled telephones. As at now, we are going for a unit cost of $50. That plant has so far churned out 294,000 units of the phones over the past 6 months, and the market has already absorbed or consumed 168,000 of those units. That just clearly shows you the level of demand. And it goes to strengthen the fact that connectivity is only useful if it is universal and inclusive. Okay, so we must think of having smartphones in the hands of everybody. Yeah, smartphones in the hands of everybody. I wanted also just to chip in terms of digital infrastructure. As we roll out the fiber, the internet, and all this, because we want to break the barriers and move together as an African continent, where fiber rolled out in Kenya should be fed into the fiber rolled out in Tanzania and Rwanda, for example. We must also, from a policy regulatory perspective, also start thinking of certain guidelines that would give us the requisite quality, yeah, so that we move in tandem. Because fiber, for example, is fiber, but not all fiber is fiber. So we must start thinking of quality, minimum standards. So that's another discussion that we need to have, so that we move in tandem. So maybe moving into the future, we need to start thinking of that. Operational guidelines, quality standards, as we roll out the digital infrastructure, so that each and every country is not doing its own thing, which is not feeding into what the other country is doing by way of minimum standards of quality. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Again, I think there's a governance issue, and potentially a governance not just in country, but governance, I think, at the continental level. So there's something we need to work as a collective. Please.
Thank you very much. My name is Karolis, and I'm the Minister of Innovation from Lithuania, and I hope you will agree, especially my colleague from Ghana, that our flag fits perfectly in this roundtable. And I'm coming from a small country in Europe that has exactly same digital transformation and is still ongoing. You know, for the last 30 years, we had to build our digital infrastructure from scratch. We have been suffering from brain drain, and we can relate to the many of the challenges that are currently being discussed even today. And I think this is and as you can see, we are a young country ourselves. And this is something that really brings me to this like-minded discussion. And I really second the aspects that have been highlighted about the digital transformation, infrastructure, and skills. And I think these aspects are very much interrelated as we look at that in our transformation. And if we look at the digital transformation, it has to come with trust. Trust of the society, trust of the decision makers. Trust comes with cybersecurity. That's one of the aspects that we always highlight. Lithuania is in the top 10 in cybersecurity. We have some cybersecurity companies present here, because if you don't trust the digital, it won't work. Another aspect is digital inclusivity. It meaning that we have to be inclusive. We always tell in Lithuania that we are moving by the pace of the slowest member of the society. And this is something very important. And I really salute M-Pesa as a solution. This is something that we are also looking at. And because fintech, financial technologies, is something that is critical to access the technologies. That's why we have some financial technologies companies present here. Also, GovTech and governmental technologies. We are the decision makers. We bring challenges to the market. And in many cases, private sector is the one that is providing solutions. But these two worlds, sometimes for them it's very hard to cooperate, and that's why we have governmental technologies, GovTech, and also team here as well with us to mediate this process. Because we had the same challenge in Lithuania, like for the decision makers in the private sector, it's very hard to have a discussion because the private sector is always ahead And we as the decision makers have to catch up with regulations and everything. And on the talent side, this is key and critical. We've been, from brain drain or brain drain dilemma, we are now moving to talent circulation dilemma. Not a dilemma, but a project on talent circulation. And we're very happy and excited to have already projects in Kenya when it comes to talent upskilling and reskilling. We have a project in Nigeria. We started with 30 people. Now, with our local partners, we are going to contribute to up to 1 million Nigerian youth in ICT sector. And if you want to know more about this transformation that we're doing here in Kenya or in Nigeria, I have my colleague here, a tall, handsome guy that you could speak with about our transformation and projects. And my final remark, technology is not about technology. Technology is about human interaction. And I think I really second what our colleague said about the human-centristic approach. That's why we are here physically. It's not AI tools interacting with each other, it's human beings interacting. I'm really thankful for this opportunity, and we're really ready not to only share the knowledge, but also learn. Because in many cases, there's a discussion that Africa is the future. I don't agree on that. Africa is the present already, and that's why we are here, that's why the businesses are here, because we are ready to learn from you and from your amazing and tremendous digital transformations that are currently happening. So thank you very much, and very excited about the discussion.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. I hope the note takers, I'm picking the main points as they emerge. I think capacity building seems to be something that is hovering around, especially with public sector. I hear a lot collaboration in real projects, not just talk, either from Tanzania and from Paula. I hear we need to be future ready. So as much as we are getting into the digital space, we need also to be aware of emerging technologies so that Africa is future ready. Whether it's AI, but also we need to be conscious around safety, security, but also building public trust. And so that technology also is protected from harms. I'm hearing a lot around access and affordability. And potentially sharing of experience around how countries have been able to bring both whether it's cost of internet but also devices down. I'm hearing more around standards, around interoperability, so standards based on interoperability. So how are different governance regimes being able to speak to each other, but then at a certain level where it raises the quality? I think being an African should also come at a certain higher standard. And that's where we also must recognize that also Africans can get they may be affordable, but they're of quality, devices and services. I'll run quickly to Emily. I have 27 minutes to land this plane, and I still have 3 other big sessions, so please get us into digital for what?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Emily Mburundoria. I'm the director responsible for trade in services, investment, intellectual property, and digital trade at the AFCFTA Secretariat. I speak today on behalf of His Excellency Wamkele Mene, the Secretary General of the AFCFTA, and we would first have to say thank you to the government of Kenya for inviting us. And I've had a lot of insights from the honorable ministers present here today, and also from the other invited guests that have spoken. I think for us, and it is important maybe here to mention that as the AFCFTA, we have also been working on issues related to digital trade, and our focus, of course, is on digital trade. So what can trade do? What can digital do for us when it comes to trade? And here, then I'll also mention that we have developed a protocol. It's called the Protocol on Digital Trade. This protocol has been adopted by the Assembly of Heads of States and Government of the African Union, and this is just very recent. It was during the 37th ordinary session in Addis Ababa, which was held in February. Now, most of the issues that are being mentioned here are also part of this protocol. And because you have insisted I deal with emerging technologies and AI, I will stick to that and say that for us, we do have an annex that we are developing. Only last week we were discussing that annex, and it is the annex on emerging technology and how can we use emerging technology to facilitate trade. So for us, we are not too focused on the technology. Maybe I need to put that into context, but it is what can that technology do for us to facilitate trade. So our key element here is how we facilitate trade. And what is coming out of it is the fact that we need to come up with a few provisions that are key to ensure that we have the protection of data when we talk emerging technology, we have ethical use of the technology, and we also have to look at what are the solutions that we can develop using these technologies. And maybe before I move on, just to say that what we have developed is a regulatory framework. And as I was listening to Minister Paula and her comments on what is being done, looking at the last mile delivery, and for us we say delivery because we are more focused on the logistics, and how do we then improve our postal offices to then provide e-commerce solutions that will be useful for that last mile delivery. Now, a second one is also using trading services. Now, we are able then to use one key mode of supply that we have in the area of trading services, which we call cross-border movement of services, where digitally enabled services become very important. And in this case, you've talked about educational services and skills development. And here for educational services especially, I think this is a key area we can focus on, because under the African Union, the theme of the year this year is focused on education. So how do we ensure that for digital skills and upscaling of the workforce, we talk about education? And also to mention that there is a program that is being done by the Commonwealth Women in Trade, let me call them Women in Trade, on they're saying 1 million girls in coding. So exactly what you have been talking about, to ensure that in the continent we will have more than 1 million women. Our focus is 1 million young girls to be in coding, and to start it at a very, very young age. And issues of coding, robotics, how do we ensure that they are handled in the continent in a manner that will bring that into context? One last one before I finish, a program that has been initiated by the government of Zambia, and this is important because it is for trade facilitation, and we are calling it Digital Trade Corridor. And the main thing about this this program, and this came out of the what was being called Digital Transformation Forum that was organized by Smart Africa in Victoria Falls. And the main concept, and this is by the president of Zambia, is to have no-stop border posts. So the issue of technology, the issue of AI becomes very important to ensure that we have those no-stop border posts. And it is between Zambia, Malawi, Botswana, and Zimbabwe. And our last one, we hope to have the Digital Trade Forum that will be held together with the government of Zambia from the 20th to the 22nd of June, and we will be looking at issues of digital trade and what digital can do to enhance the facilitation of trade. Thank you
so much, Emily, and I hope the rapporteurs are taking note of that. That is just not a trade ministers meeting, but also it's a ministerial ministers of trade that also includes ministers of technology. Again, just to break the silos, because sometimes we silo and then we forget
that. That is exactly the point.
Thank you so much. I hope you'll send invites around. Quickly, let me hand it over to the chair, and then I'll come to you, Minister.
Thank you, Philip. I think the other discussion we need to have is in the space of digital identity. Each and every country is already thinking of how to have a virtual mechanism of confirming the identity of people. But if that is the case, I think sooner or later we need to start embarking on the discussion on a digital identity for Africa. Yeah? To facilitate virtual identification across the entire continent, because we are thinking of one continental digital economy. And if that is the case, we should also start thinking about e-commerce platforms for Africa, not just each and every country doing its own thing, but not feeding into the other. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, and let's just pack that, because I think that's important. So I hope Visa is in the room, everybody in payments. I see you'll talk later. I just want you to take note of that, because what is the digital ID for? It needs to be for trade. I see Gates, I see a lot of the tech companies. We said we want to be very practical. So hopefully we'll put together a working group on a digital ID for Africa. I see COMESA, I see the Africa Union, so that out of here we come up with a very practical, multi-stakeholder, a collaborative that moves around digital ID. I also see Africa CDC. Part of identity is also health. So maybe let's just make it all-encompassing so that we are, as we said, we are being efficient, but also we're delivering for a continent. And let me remind us that a lot of the Africans trading across borders are small traders. So that solution must be able to work, especially across borders. And to the point of the chair, is that interoperability is going to be very important. So how do we ensure that our regulations and legal regimes are not the ones blocking us from trading across borders? Just to take note of that, believe me, I still feel we'll need another connected or a special connected ministerial summit at some point to actually hash out not everything, but the specific pain points that we need to move beyond the obvious ones. Honorable Minister Emma.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. I think I just wanted to say that the Cabinet Secretary literally took the words out of my mouth when he spoke about e-commerce. Exactly as soon as she's finished speaking, that's also what came to mind. But I'd just also like to add that truly the issue around digital identification, linking it to e-commerce and the digital economy, it's almost a no-brainer. And I would really like to challenge the AFCFTA around the digital payment solution. Truly, a pan-African digital payment solution. I think it is possible. So if I'm buying a product in Ghana and I'm using Namibian dollars, there must be some way the platform would be able to facilitate that purchase as a pan-African digital solution for products in Ghana without me needing to lose so much money in the conversion between our currencies. I think it's possible. So there is really a convergence where this is concerned around ministers of technology, ministers of trade, because the digital economy and the e-commerce discussion is really around the youth population, which the African continent has in abundance. So this is my challenge to the Africa Free Trade Area, continental area, as a challenge, but also a challenge to all of us as trade ministers and technology ministers to make this possible. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Honorable Minister. I'm trying not to get you on the floor again. Robin, are you here? Amazon Web Service. Is it possible? I'm sorry, it's just going to be that type of a day. Is it possible? I'm hearing digital payments. You guys have done, well, you are the biggest of these things. You are in Africa now. You are making investments. Is it possible to get there? Problem with the mic will come to you. I do not have time. We'll come to you later. Let's go to financing very quickly. Okay, cool.
Check. Okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I think as Amazon Web Services, as part of the overall Amazon group, we're really excited and grateful to be part of this session. We've really enjoyed the ongoing conversations in the last 2 days. And I think for those of us that were there this morning, you remember we mentioning about some of the investments that we've continued making in the last 6 years. Even though we've been on the continent for now 20 years, in the last 6 years alone, we've made investments worth just over $800 million, which have included infrastructure, offices, created jobs, and infrastructure stretching quite a number of African countries, as mentioned earlier. And this not only speaks to facilitating trade, we've talked about also digitizing governments, impacting education, impacting health, and with the most recent, and I think some of the most impactful being in 2 areas, especially around the demographic dividend that we highlighted. With a continent that's over 70% below the age of 30, I think for us we see it as an opportunity and an interesting sweet spot because of the industry that we play in. We see that with the industry we're in, 30% of organizations that are struggling today to move towards the cloud are talking about a gap in skills. And then when we see on LinkedIn, we see that skills become a major hindrance, and yet cloud computing is a highly sought after skill. And therefore, what we've done in the past few years, we are now going country by country and aligning with a centralized approach. I'm calling it a centralized approach because we did burn our fingers earlier on in trying to spread ourselves too thin at a country level. And now as we look at the approach we've learned, I think from the last now 4 or 5 countries we've been to, we're seeing a really impressive engagement when we go and start from the Ministry of ICT and leveraging existing governance and laid out structures to be able to then expand and be able to then
okay, so it's possible. I was just going for a short answer.
It is definitely possible.
Thanks, Robin.
And we're keen to do more as we go forward.
And basically at a regional level, because it makes a lot of sense. So I think you again are giving it the credibility that we need really to be connected.
Spot on.
Because it just makes sense when we are more connected. So hopefully, again, we'll follow the cue from AWS. Quickly, how will we pay for this? It's good to have ideas. It's good to have a lot of these things. I see you, but I need to go to the World Bank.
Thank you. The answer to the question, how is the digital economy paid for, is relatively simple. It's the consumers, the users, you and I, who pay for it through our subscriptions, through our use of transactions, through watching adverts. But there is often a gap between the ability of consumers to be able to fund the infrastructure they need for services. And that's where the World Bank and organizations like the World Bank come in to close that, narrow that gap. And we already have a portfolio within the Eastern and Southern Africa region of $2.2 billion, and Kenya is one of our biggest investments through the Kenya Digital Economy Acceleration Program, $390 million in the first phase. But later this week, we'll be considering a new program, IDEA, Inclusive Digitization in Eastern and Southern Africa, which will bring $3 billion in fresh financing for the region over the next 8 years, with programs or components on connectivity and secure data hosting, on data platforms, and on high growth impact services. And the initial 3 countries are Angola, DRC, and Malawi, as well as COMESA, who will be giving a grant to for regional coordination, and would invite ministers of countries present to consider joining the programme. It'll go to our board in June of this year for approval. Thank you.
How do we find you?
Worldbank.org.
Thank you. You can't just give a promise and then you disappear. Rachel, please. Gates? If you're not giving money, this session is not yours.
Thank you very much. I wanted to pick up from what Minister Emma spoke about from Namibia, but also Our Lady from the AFCTA, just to highlight some of the work that we are supporting at the Gates Foundation. We are making investments in pro-poor payment systems at national level, but also regionally. This includes supporting implementation of national instant payment systems, but also interoperable payment systems, both at national level, but also at cross-border level. For example, we've supported instant payment systems in Kenya, in Tanzania and Uganda, and we're hoping that we can leverage more partnerships in other countries to enhance this work, to facilitate the inter-country but also inter-regional trade that was being spoken about by the two. Let me also intimate that we have vested interest in enhancing women empowerment and inclusion of women into the financial space. For example, we have investments in an entity called M-Kopa here in Kenya to expand the use of smartphones for women through their pay-as-you-go model, but also as they access energy and other entrepreneurial spaces. Thank you. So looking forward to partnering further.
Thanks so much, Rachel from Gates. FDB, I hear, is online. That will probably be our final speaker. If they're delayed, we'll take that
Nick,
time. Right?
you're online? He can hear us. He's saying he can hear us.
Emily, please intervene as he's trying to get his act together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it was just the time was too short. I did not mention the Pan-African payment and settlement system. So maybe just to answer you directly, Honorable Minister, is that there is already a system that has been developed with this, under the AFCFTA with the support of the Afrexim Bank, and it is called the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. And what the program really intends to do is to assist for instant payments of quicker payments because of the settlement angle between African countries, and it is in African currencies. So you pay in your own currency and you get it. And maybe also just to follow up from the CS Kenya, and to say that digital payments is one of the key elements that we are also looking at under the protocol, and it is because it is also part of the foundation of having cross-border digital payments, together with the issue of cross-border data transfers. So you have to allow also for cross-border data transfer to be able to do the payments. And so all that is part of what is being considered under the protocol on digital trade. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, SFTA.
Nick, you can go ahead.
It's fine. Visa, you have 2 minutes. You have a minute or 2 minutes. Please bring the mic. Excuse me, microphone to Visa.
Thank you. 2 minutes will be quite challenging, but I'll try to be quick. Honorable Ministers, the distinguished guests, thank you for this opportunity. I think that as we are looking at working with governments, we are looking at helping governments to build digital government ecosystems, this visa. And this includes several elements, starting from facilitating purely digital IDs for the government, obviously on-prem solutions, etc., which we are already doing in quite a few African countries. That it will be combined with building applications, websites, and other parts of the ecosystems for citizens and businesses to enjoy first access to public services and digital documents, which is digital ID, driver's license, etc., which is combined with, obviously, payment capabilities and other parts of the wallets, which is payment capabilities which will help to ensure closure of the financial inclusion gap, which exists today. So literally, all citizens which will be having digital ID, they will be having also the government wallet, which might be used by the government for making all types of government disbursements, humanitarian disbursements, emergency aid, etc. What is also really very important is we are helping and facilitating with quite a few governments in Africa to build ecosystems for small and medium businesses, which are critical for African economy, which starts from the moment of onboarding and registering of such merchants and facilitating e-commerce, including using of marketplaces, which might be run by different types of organizations.
Clear.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I hope it won't be exclusive, because I think we need to allow countries to have access to all options that are available. Honorable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, I was clear. 1 minute, Comesa.
And just to a heads up really on the payment system, because COMESA does have a regional payment system which you can transact in the local currency. But from the experience we've had is that you need the countries to sign up on this, because then if you don't, we'll have a payment system that doesn't work. We have an uptake of 9 countries out of 21. So you can, if we don't have confidence in our own systems, then we'll not be able to make use of that.
So in that working group, I see COMESA, I see SCFTA, and maybe Namibia as a use case, because there's clearly, I think, some alignment there. Honorable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have to close. But thank you so much for indulging us. We've compressed a 2-day 4-hour program into 1.5 hours. So please give yourself a hand. Really, this was amazing, all the conversations. And as we've agreed, this is not the end. You'll get reports. We have very practical action points, and we'll try and frame that into a ministerial statement. And thank you for the partners who came into the room, and thank you also for those who supported this event. Let me hand it over back to the chair.
Thank you very much, Philip. I think this was a very, very useful discussion, and we have come up with very clear strategic issues that we need to address. But over and above everything else that we have said, the take-home question is that we need to grapple with is sustainability of the digital programs. We are doing a lot in terms of rollout of these digital programs. How sustainable are they? And we can look at that in line with the funding. Because most of these programs are funded by either government or support from donors and partners. I think it is high time we thought of a mechanism through which the final consumer can contribute towards the rollout of digital infrastructure. In Kenya, as a government, we are grappling, as a ministry, we are grappling with the possibility of perhaps having a digitalization fund, just the same way we have a fuel levy fund or we used to have a sugar levy fund. Can we have a situation where the final consumer also contribute, make some contributing component which is in turn plowed back to the rollout of the digital infrastructure so that these programs are sustainable? Anything which is free is not sustainable in the long run. Thank you very much for your useful contributions. And the cabinet ministers, the ministers, please remember we are leaving almost immediately for another meeting.
And we are adjourned. Thank you so much. You can leave at your pleasure. That's why you do a working group, then you go to the, that's what
Just when the commission was starting to get on.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, at least I got everything in the statement.
Yeah,
in the floor. That's what I said. Yeah, so I got everything. So as you said, now so I just was looking at all these 3, 4, 5 things. Those 3, 4, 5 things.
And everybody showed up.
Yeah. I'm done. So we landed the plane. The plane landed. The plane landed. Look at this. The plane landed.
It was today. It was, No, even yesterday was home.
It was full yesterday.
It was late. No, but we can't get the budget short.
Yeah, because there are 2 pieces we didn't.
FDB is so excited about it.